Amazing. Today, this became a reality that everyone is a learner, no matter what the age is. Everyone is a student. Everyone remains a student. So, how do you feel? Actually, you're back to university from a 20 years experience. I'll talk about it later, but I'll tell you, we have people joining from Malaysia, India, Pakistan, Argentina, Egypt, and and Yugoslavia.
Okay.
So, and many of them will join soon. And I think we should start with the session since like we have allotted you, we have like taken a slot for 1 hour. So I'll just explain the flow once that 45 minutes we'll have a session with Arjun sir having a talk show, knowing his experience and his leadership lessons about his life, his purpose of living, and then we'll be moving forward for an interactive session if required with the audience. I think we are 16 of us are here, so it will become easy to talk to him directly. So you have got this lucky thing today, something good in this journey. So getting to live your journey, so getting to live your life through your words is going to be an amazing experience for us. So very much thank you, and we really appreciate your time for us. So where are you, sir, right now at the moment, in India or in London?
No, I'm right now in London. My course is still going on, though we have a short break, which is on right now. But yes, London it is right now.
Oh, amazing. So how's the weather?
Weather is the way British weather is. So there's been a spell of rain, and then the sun peeps out for a moment, and then it rains again, and it's living up to its reputation.
The peekaboo game is still on, no matter what. Okay, so I'll introduce Arjun sir to all of you. Although we have done a great PR, and I know most of us must be knowing about Arjun sir. He's the tiger of our Talk to Tiger. And after 12th, he joined the NDA, that's National Defense Academy. For 3 years, he was into National Defense Academy, then IMA, Military Association, with 1 year there as an army officer. He was getting trained, and soon he became a team leader, leading 50 men's. Then soon after, 100 men's in Siachen and Kargil. It's one of the battle areas where there's like heat always present because our neighbors are. Everybody knows we live with beautiful neighbors and we love them. Actually, when we talk, I think Harris is here from Pakistan. And Harris' father is also in army. He works for the nuclear department. So we keep talking and exchanging, but we students have a lot of love within ourselves, and we live like global citizens and international community. So the diplomacy keeps us. We are far away from those complex diplomacy processes. And then soon after being the team leader at Siachen and Kargil, he went for training in Israel for the drone flying, setting up infrastructure in India after his training, and becoming a senior leader soon after because he's got well trained now. He's an army man officer. His fourth generations were in the army. He's the fourth generation officer. His prior great grandfather, then his father and grandfather was in army, led battalions and were holding colonel positions in the past. Then soon after, he went to, after being a senior leader for 3 years in the anti-terrorism squad, handling operations in Assam and the border of Nagaland. He then later, after performing well, he was transferred to Punjab for setting up a new unit where he was the very first person, the only person in the room, developing infrastructure and forming a new unit. And soon after, he developed a team of 450 plus army officers, army men, and for 1 to 2 years this process took. Soon after that, he reached the world's highest battlefield with 650 men. He was leading 650 men and handling logistics. This in Sikkim. This is again Siachen and Ladakh. He was in Leh for a time, posted there, being the commanding officer. And recently he's quit being the director of talent and acquisition He had an annual target of 6,000 plus army officers to take on. He has managed to receive all his targets, and he's been a great. He has had a great performance in his career, and this 20 years of experience. I would say this is just not 20 years of experience, to be honest. This is more than 20 years of experience that we are going to learn from, because his father used to write him letters, and I'm sure his father was also an army officer. So from there also we'll get to learn something. So it's like ages of army, fourth generations of armies practices must be inculcated in him. So that kind of discipline that we are going to learn from him, and the integrity that he'll bring on plate to us, is going to be extremely tremendously strong enough to make us better global citizens, I believe. Welcome to the family of Entrepreneurship Society at University of London International Community, Arjun sir. We warmly
Thank you so
welcome you.
much.
Welcome,
Thank
sir.
you so much.
Welcome. So I'll be continuing, sir. We know about your journey now so far. So we'll be asking you about personal questions, and like asking you about the purpose of life, basically. We'll be continuing, and like we'll have a conversation. I'll keep on interrupting you, and I'm very sorry about that. So well in advance, I would take that. I would be apologetic about it. So I'll be asking you about your life, sir. How far, like, what do you think about life?
Uh, life so far has been very, very colorful, and there's been a lot to learn. Uh, Partially because of the upbringing in a military household. So you were prepared for everything, and partially because of the training thereafter. It took me all over India, and India is a subcontinent in itself. So interacting with a lot of people, with a lot of different cultures, and in a way, the army in every tenure and every posting of mine gave me a different role, which I used to curse at that point of time. But by the time I came around to finishing 20 years, they kept a moniker for me. Instead of Arjun Pratap Singh, they started naming me All Purpose Singh. And now when I'm making this transition to the civil world, I realize how fruitful it has been, and how much I can correlate to the different roles that I envisage and what I'm studying. So yeah, life has been good, and there are absolutely no regrets whatsoever.
Why, what made you leave the army and join the LBS, this new program at LBS, the fellowship? It's been running from years now, but it's like really new for us, our audience. Could you please explain it to us, and what made you join?
Okay, so after about 20 years, you get slotted for desk jobs, and you are no longer with your men, and making things happen on ground, and turning things around, and all that excitement actually goes away. You supposedly you become that senior person who's supposed to be sitting behind a desk and suited booted and directing things, which in a way was a little less exciting for me. And I wanted to be on ground doing things and making things happen. So that was one reason. And the second reason was that towards the later part of my career, there had been so many moves and transitions. My son had actually changed 5 schools in 6 years, moving so many times, that I thought that I owed it a bit to them to give them a little bit of stability and give them a little bit of a better education, a better lifestyle than what I was at that point of time giving them. London Business School. To be honest, I had no plans of coming to the London Business School. Uh, I just avidly wanted to learn. I wanted to reskill myself, and I didn't want to get into the corporate world straight out of the army. And you have those images of that big mustachioed army colonel with gray hair, even though I have a mustache also, and it's up. But then that's what they show you, and that's what they slot an army colonel as, who's holding a double barrel gun, and whoever comes close to his daughter, he's going to fire 2 shots. So I wanted to break that stereotype that this is not who I am. I still have a lot of life in me, and there is still a lot of go. So why not learn? And there is no age to stop learning. You I'm a Sikh, so Sikh actually means, it comes from the word Sikhan. Sikhan is to learn. So you can never stop learning in life. And that's how this happened. And Sloan is a program which is meant for senior professionals. So people in my cohort range from 14 years to about 30 years of experience. And I actually feel very young when I'm in the class. So it's not all that bad also.
Honestly, you look very young. And the day I had not seen your CV, I was like, you must be like unmarried. To be honest, I was assuming you're not married yet, because the smile that you're holding is the smile that a 20-year-old guy holds, sir. So it's very a pretty smile. After reading about you having 20 years of experience, then I thought, yeah, sir must be married and sir must be living a life like a man. But that doesn't makes me say that you look young. You look very young, sir. To be very honest.
Thank you.
And what do your children think about you, sir? Since you're making a transformation to college and after spending 20 years of life in army.
So all this time, me and my son, we have this conflict going on
Mhm.
where London, you cannot afford a very big house. So we've got a normal house which has 2 bedrooms and one to my kids and one to our family. And in one of them, we've set up a study table. So all the time we are having this conflict on who's going to sit on the study table and study. And at times I take that opportunity to tell him, see how much I'm studying and you are not studying. So like a typical Indian dad, I keep rubbing it onto him now also. And I think I'm a typical Indian father. The way I saw my father, I try and be the same with him. A little strict, a little fun. Uh, at times, I give him that dose of values, and this is what you are supposed to do, and this is not what you are supposed to do. And at times, I talk to him about his girlfriends, and we have our share of fun with each other.
That's really, sir, appreciating that you manage your work. Like now you're maintaining. I think in the past, like you've served the army, you've done a lot of things from training, being a lifelong learner, to handling, leading teams. So you must always like anything, like everything must be on your mind, sir. You must be keep on thinking about life from a different perspective. Being very aggressive at times because the armies have ought to have a bureaucratic structure, being very autocratic at times, many times actually in the today's world it has become more democratic, where the organizational structure has become democratic and people like to talk, discuss, and then come to a solution. But you coming from a background where people needed authority to go on a war, people must look up to someone, to a mentor. So that was very much required. So what about that transition? Like, what transition have you faced in that? Has it been a difficult?
Uh, no, the army itself has made this huge transition from what it used to be. When I joined, and that was the time that the Kargil conflict was just about ending and ceasefire hadn't taken place, and you typically required that leader who's going to stand there and shout at the top of his lungs and lead his men into battle and uh, probably face the first bullet. That's the way the Indian army functions. You got to lead them from the front, and so you got to be fitter than the men. You've got to be more knowledgeable than the men, and you've got to be more brave or foolhardy, whichever way you want to put it, than the men. So that was the way that the army was when I joined, and this was in the beginning of 2000. And the Kargil war was just ending in 99, so ceasefire still hadn't taken place, and I saw my share of conflict and that typical old age army. But I think it's also a reflection of the society that you live in. And as time has progressed, the army now is not the way that it used to be. It has a lot of reasoning that needs to go into. You have to explain logic to your men. You have to motivate them in a way that they understand. Um, it's not all that autocratic anymore, and it's a lot more bureaucratic. You cannot push your way across with anyone. The minute you do that, you will find a video of yourself floating around on WhatsApp trying to hammer something into their head. So it doesn't work that way. And it's now that I've transitioned onto the other side, I see a lot of similarities between the army and the corporate world right now. So the transition, I don't think it's been so difficult. I think almost everything that I learned towards the later part of my military career is is you can apply it in the corporate world straight away.
Okay, that makes me wonder what skill sets do you possess?
See, we started off in the beginning uh, uh, that you got to be open to learning, right? So that is one thing that the army teaches you. You join as a lieutenant, and you have 10 people under you who are all probably elder than you, who all have more experience than you, but you've been made there in charge, that you are the one who's going to be leading them into battle and leading them. So you got to learn from all of them. You cannot straight away start bossing around. You start growing a little senior in your service and in your rank. You start having a lesser number of people who are there, but you still got to learn from them. You still got to accept some of them as your mentors. We didn't know the word mentor till a few years ago, so but classically that's what they become. They are your mentors who are actually coaching you and teaching you and guiding you along. And of course, as you rise higher in life and you become a commanding officer, and um, they say that at the top it becomes a little lonely, and finally you have only one person who's a subedar major, who's probably your father's age when you are commanding, and he's the one who's going to tell you, when you're facing a tough situation, that this is not what you are supposed to do, and do it this way, and you've got to learn all through. So that is what is there. One of the skills is to learn. The second thing that the army taught is to be humble. When you are learning from all these people, you've got to keep your head low and you've got to learn. You cannot be that I know everything and that what I say is the end of the world. The day you say that, not only you but the men under you are finished. So you've got to be humble. You've got to learn from everything. Then you've got to be happy. You are posted in a place like Siachen, where you are eating ice and surviving on it. You're boiling ice to make water out of it. You're living in a place like Kargil, where you will not see flowers or your loved ones, or not even a phone call with your kids. But you got to be happy at those places. You're doing counterinsurgency. You are in a place where there are no timings. You are working 24/7. You will get up in the middle of the night and get a call, and you need to rush to some particular place for an operation. You've probably killed a person for the first time, and you are suffering from that, the shock of it, of what we call as traumatic stress disorder. These days, the fancy words that I've learned in London. But you've got to remain happy all through this. Otherwise, you will not survive. So I'll not get into the classical corporate skill sets. They're all on LinkedIn, but I'll tell you the life skill sets. These are the life skill sets that you carry with you, and and you learn to give your 100%. You may agree with something, you may not agree with something. Just too bad. I had a boss who used to tell me that decision making is a democratic process, but implementation is autocratic. So when we used to be ideating and discussing about things, everybody was open to give their suggestions. We would all speak up our minds and tell him, sir, I think this is not going to work like this and this is going to work like that. But once a decision was taken, irrespective of whether you had agreed with it in the first place or not, everybody gave their 100%. So to give you 100%, I mean, these are life skills that I picked up along the way. Corporate skills are endless, and you have LinkedIn and all those places where you can find out about it.
That's true. That's true. Very true of you, because we are also here to learn beyond. Because something that stays with us forever. You'll tell us. You. The very first time I spoke to you, you said, "What do you want me to talk about?" Right. So I was like, I want something from you that can remain with me forever, not just for a time. Something knowledge I take from you will remain with me for a specific time, right? But some values that I take from today's event will remain with me forever. So that's exactly the purpose that we all are here for. And as you said, sir, previously you mentioned that there's guilt, there's regret when you have to take tough decisions in army. How do you overcome those regrets or those
Uh,
tough times?
See, the Indian Army is still a bit in the old ages, in the sense that we do not have so many psychological counselors and so many people whom you can formally go for uh, taking out all these traumatic situations that you have been into. But then, in a way, that works very well, because it bonds you between your seniors and your juniors. So you have a problem, you can approach your senior, you can go and talk to him. We don't have a formal mentor system, but we have a fantastic relationship between seniors and juniors. You got a problem, you go to your senior, you talk about it to him, you tell him, sir, how did you deal with it? And he'll tell you whatever his experiences were, and in a way, talking takes it out of your system. So there's a problem with a junior, you may be battling your own problem. The junior is going to come to you and talk about it, that, sir, I'm facing so and so problem, how do I handle it? So suddenly you push your problems back, you realize that somebody else is facing a bigger problem than what I'm facing, and you get on to helping that person out and getting him out of his problem, and in that way you get out of your own problems. So that's the way that you deal with it. And not that I'm not progressive. I mean, obviously, psychologists and psychiatrists and counselors and mentors have all their own role to play. But then, in a way, this is a very good system where there is so much more bonding. There is so much more bonhomie, and you are spending so much time getting to know each other and become a team. So I think that is an asset for the Indian Army, and that's how you get over things in the Indian Army.
So, like, there's no particular department as such. There are, but that's very less. That's not to an extent that everybody can have facilities of the same in the army.
Yes, it's slowly coming in, and slowly you have a psychological counselor in the form of a pandit in the unit, and every unit has a religious preacher based on the majority of religious people in that unit. So, I mean, if you have a majority of Hindus, you will have a pandit in that unit. If you have a majority of Sikhs, you will have a Granthi. And if you have a majority of Muslims, you will have a Maulvi in that unit. So he kind of becomes the unofficial counselor for the unit, and you can always go to him with a problem. Besides that, you have a buddy system in the units. So you have allocated two people who are your buddies, and you can go and discuss everything with them. And so it's more of an informal system which actually binds you together, that helps you out in such situations.
What about God? Like, what role does God plays in your life so far? What role has He played in your life?
Okay, I used to be a very an unbeliever, if I may put it that way. And my first posting, like you've already brought out, was in an area where there was actually firing going on, and we were holding Bofors guns and firing day and night onto the enemy targets. And one morning, there was a Jawan of mine. He was much older than me, probably double my age. He was around 40, and I was just into my 20s. And he was going to the Gurdwara. We had a Gurdwara in the unit. It was a pure Sikh unit. And whereas I was standing there all ready at about 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, ready to get the guns fired. There's a target that has come, and the guns need to fire on that particular target. And this guy is going towards the Gurdwara. So I stopped him and I told him, I said, no, the Gurdwara is not there. The Gurdwara is in the gun pit. So this is your guru, and you got to first worship this gun which is there, and then go and worship anybody else. And so I was that kind of a person. I mean, but slowly as time progressed, I realized, and I unashamedly say so, that there is somebody who is watching out for you. And I developed faith in a lot of things. I mean, without turning this into a religious discourse, not just Sikhism, but in peers, in Babas, who have been there. And there were experiences which I had which touched me in a way that probably science could
Justify.
not justify.
Uh,
Absolutely. So I'm a believer now. I won't say that I'm religious, but I'm a believer.
can you talk about some instances, like if you don't mind, that made you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you one of those instances. We went to Shirdi, which is Sai Baba's place of worship, and me and my wife were then going around. We weren't married. We were still seeing each other, and we were
Wow.
on a motorcycle, which was borrowed from somebody. And it started raining on the way back, and uh, the motorcycle got wet. We got wet, and it shut down. It just wouldn't start. So we decided to park it onto a side and wait for the rain to finish. And the way rains are in Maharashtra, the rain would not end. It just kept pouring and pouring, and it started getting dark. And I started getting worried that it's a lonely drive without any lights and without too much of traffic on the way back. So I started to push the motorcycle, trying to get it started, and it wouldn't start. I pushed it down a slope, and there I see that there's a hut. And I go to that hut and I knock the door and I say, "Sir, can you guide me to a mechanic who can probably help me start the motorcycle?" The person comes out and says, "I'm a mechanic. Why don't you come inside and why don't you call your wife also? She can sit in my house, and my sister's here. She's going to make a nice hot cup of tea for you. And in the meanwhile, I'll get your bike started." I'm very happy. I mean, both of us sit down, we have a nice hot cup of tea, the bike starts. And the army never used to pay so much in those days. And so, as a matter of faith, whatever I had in my wallet, I had given it to the shrine, to the dargah there, and I was without a penny. So when this guy started the bike, I had nothing to give him other than my thank you. I thanked him, and I made a promise to myself that I'm going to come back one day and repay him for his kindness. About 4 or 5 years down the line, we get married, we come back, we're a little better off. We've got a car, we again go to Sai Baba. And on our way back, we decide that we're going to stop at this guy's house and thank him. To our surprise and shock, there is no house. So we go on the road about 5, 6 times, and every time we run that whole stretch multiple number of times, but there is no house. We finally go to the next village, and in that village, we there's a garage there. So obviously, a mechanic would be knowing the other mechanic. We stop at that garage and we ask the person. There used to be a mechanic who used to live about a kilometer behind, and this guy tells us, "I'm the only mechanic here, and a kilometer behind has been only jungles. There's never been anyone who has ever lived there." So, in certain ways, there is a supreme power who starts reaching out to you and touching you in your life. And when my second child was to be, when we were having our second child, and my wife was expecting our daughter, before the delivery, she went into coma. And by the time I reached the hospital, the doctor said that your wife her breathing has stopped, good about 5 minutes ago. So your child is more than 5 minutes ago. So your child is definitely gone, and we're going to try and fight to save your wife, and that's the truth of it. And I'm sitting there and I'm praying, and finally at the end of it, everybody comes out alive and well. So uh, there are things which cannot be explained, and uh, while I do not believe in any one religion, I wear a turban at times I do not, but I do not believe in any one religion per se. I go to church, I go to the synagogue, I've prayed in a lot of mosques over a period of time. I've been to mandirs. As a commanding officer leading people who were primarily Hindus, I was required to do havans every Sunday. So I did havans every Sunday. And this is one of the things that the army taught you, that you cannot be biased towards any particular religion or any particular thing. So I'm a believer now.
How do you used to solve disputes if like the internal team used to fight? Tell me an instance. I am sure you must have experienced this.
Yeah, yeah. So in terms of professional disputes,
You can go for anything, personal and professional, both is welcome.
Okay.
Whichever is
In terms
interesting,
of
just that. First that.
okay, in terms of professional disputes, I used to tell them both of you go ahead and let the better man win. And then we would derive lessons out of it. When they would both finish, we would get back everyone, not just the two of them, and we would learn what went well and what did not go well. That, in a way, kept everybody in good spirits, and we would follow that up with a round of drinks in the mess, to so that you do not carry that bitterness to your house. You get over it in the office, and you take out whatever you did not like and you did not do well in the office itself. So professionally, that is what we used to do. Two people fighting, both of you do the way you wanted to do, and let's see who comes up better. Personal levels used to be a tricky situation because in the army, as especially in the senior levels, you've got to, not only are you a commanding officer, you become a father figure. So people actually look up to you for advice, and they actually come out with a lot of personal issues, uh, which you're supposed to solve, which you are supposed to keep confidential with you. And then it's a different skill set. It's more of a humane side. You need to sit down, understand, sometimes reach across, and solve things for them. So
So
two
it
very different aspects.
so it used to take time, or would you solve them in a minute? Like, this is how it is. Just like agree with this, compromise a little, and you would make a negotiation deal between them, and everything used to get back to normal. Is it that simple?
Anything which is solvable in a minute is not a problem. So, and people do not reach out for something which is so solvable. People, in fact, people are very hesitant to come to you for problems. So if somebody is actually reaching across to you with a problem, means that he has a lot of faith in you, in your capabilities to solve it, and he's coming to you with a lot of expectation. So you've got to give it that due diligence and the respect that it deserves. And you've got to get to its root cause. You've got to spend time with them. You've got to come out with a solution that has long-term impact and is not going to come back and haunt them again the next day. So it this used to take time. If somebody were to come to me with a problem, I would understand that it's really grave, and he's taken a bold step of coming to me, and he deserves that much of attention. So yeah.
Like for me, the definition of power, like since you're talking about the hierarchy, for me, the definition of power is that if I'm holding a gun, that does not mean I'm powerful. It means I'm scared of the person. I'll shoot them, so it means I'm scared of them. But yeah, letting them go is what is power. That I couldn't take their shit, but yeah, it ended up like I did. I could take it. Whatever they did to me, I was very powerful. For me, that is the definition of power. What, according to you, is the definition of power?
I I I, I couldn't agree more with you. It's very easy to restrict things. It's very easy to control. When you come at that particular position, it's very easy to say, I'll not give you this, or I'll not let you go there. I'll not give you a promotion, or I will not give you the funds that you have asked for, or I'm not going to give you a team that you are asking for. Very easy to be restrictive. However, it is very difficult to be generous. Okay, it's very difficult. It requires a large heart to say, go ahead. You need this, I'll give you 10 more. You need this, I'll give you two more. You need this, I'm going to be there with you. Okay, so power actually comes from the ability to give rather than the ability to restrict things. That for me is power.
What values do you teach your son? It's very intriguing to know.
Right, a couple of years ago, he turned 13. So the first thing that I taught him was to respect women. I told him, I said, I do not want you disrespecting a girl, and I do not want you embarrassing her in any way. The second thing that I told him was that if you do not like girls and if you like boys, it's fine with me. So you can come and talk about it to me, and everybody is equal, uh, whether it's a girl or a boy, or whether it's a person with brown skin like me, or it's a person with white skin or black skin. It doesn't make a difference. And I try and tell him to recognize the inner beauty of people rather than going in for superfluous things like clothes and fashion and stuff like this. He's got this beard that he's growing these days, and teenagers. With all due respect, I don't know if there are any teenagers on this forum. So teenagers have what, as per me or my generation, is a little weird sense of style. So so he's got this beard which is growing, and it's growing all over the place. And his mother's after his life to get it trimmed and get it cut and become a little smart, and and so he came to me for advice, and I told him, I said, see, if you're going to be doing it only for the looks, as in if it matters to someone else, so you're doing it because somebody else is going to judge you for your looks, then I think you shouldn't do it, and just let it be the way it is. Whoever has to love you, whoever has to like you, whoever has to respect you, will love you for the person that you are and will not go for the looks that you carry. So those are the kind of things that I try and tell him. I don't know how much goes in. We'll get to know in a few years, but I'm sure even if 10% goes in, it's worth it.
Did you have a love marriage or was it an arranged marriage? Your dad fixed it up for you.
Yeah, we had a love marriage.
Wow, that's interesting. Nice. I cannot have that conversation here, but later I'll take it off screen. And
Yeah.
so, what are the lessons learned from your father?
From my father, my father was a very strict guy. I
Very
mean,
strict?
very strict. And but the good part was that that strictness or that being tough did not stop him from giving me a hug or going out to play with me or taking me for an ice cream. So he was strict when it was required. And when that moment would pass, he would be back to his normal self. He was very affectionate at the same time. So that is one thing that he taught me, was that when you require to be strict, you need to be strict. When something is wrong, stand up, take a call, say this is wrong, and get over it. Okay, don't carry it with you for the rest of the day, and don't sulk about it, and don't create a scene and spoil the atmosphere. You've done something wrong, you say this is wrong, or you hear that you've gone wrong, and after that, move on. Don't carry it with you. Uh, Other than that, he was a leader. So he was actually the one that who was known as a tiger, and
Oh,
his men still refer to him as a tiger. So I used to try and copy him and reach the standards. And in fact, a couple of days ago, I got the biggest compliment when one of his subordinates told me that I had roughly been able to achieve what he was like. So that was a big compliment for me, and that was the way that I used to idolize him. He was very honest. So if there was something wrong, and there was somebody who was doing something wrong, he would call it out. He would not turn a blind eye. He used to tell me that keeping quiet about something is as much uh, participating in it as the person who's doing it. So you're a party to it if you are keeping quiet about it. If there is something wrong which is happening, please stand up, say this is wrong, and then it's up to them. They want to go ahead, they can go ahead. You step back, and that way he was very honest. And he's still 80. He's about 80. Yes, he's almost 80 now, and he's still going strong. So
wow.
that is another thing that I've learned from him. He goes for his walk, he does his exercise, he takes out time to talk to his grandchildren, and I still love saying "I love you, Papa" to him. So that's the kind of relationship that we have. Yeah.
What about mom? She must be very supporting to dad, dad, everyone at home, because it's like for women's, they have to like see everything. They have to make a house. They have to look at two houses. One house at their ends, like where they're born and brought up. The second house that they're making along with their husbands. So you were most of the times at work. How did your wife manage, and how your mother used to manage? So you've seen both the
I,
lives.
I think women in our family are the biggest grounding factor. So I tell my wife, yeah, I've got to go and give this talk to University of London International Community, and she'll be like, yeah, yeah, do the dishes before you go, okay? So they are that grounding factor in our lives that whatever you are doing, whatever you are achieving, you are still a father, you are still a husband, and you still have that role to play, which is most important, uh, which is probably going to be your biggest achievement in life. And you need to do that better than what you are doing in your office. So and when I see my mother and my wife, I see a lot of commonality in the sense of the amount of sacrifices that they have made for the family. So I think that is amazing. I do not know if I were a house husband and my wife were the working member, whether I'd be able to make those sacrifices that she has or my mother has made. I think that's a tremendous power that women have, the resilience and the inner strength that they have. I think it's tremendous. And which is why in the corporate world also, wherever you have women, you find them excelling much more than probably the men could have in those circumstances.
Everywhere. Even I truly agree in this fact, and I keep telling people ask me about my plans for future. Like I'm graduating this year, soon the results will be out, and I'll be graduating. So many of my relatives, you know how relatives are, specifically in our community, they keep asking us. So when they ask me about my future plans, I say I want to join a company where at least one director is a lady, because I believe that company can do better than the company who do not have a director as a woman
Yeah,
on board. So
yeah,
I also see that this gender bias is being now getting blurred, and soon enough we will give importance to the women that they deserve actually. So that's a
yeah.
very nice thing that you brought up, that you also being from army, and because it is unimaginable to think about that kind of feelings. So I really appreciate that, sir. So why did you select LBS, sir?
Okay.
And okay. Before
Well,
that question, I would once like want to interrupt and ask about, like, was your wife ready to leave India and come down to London, or was she always in London? What is it?
so I hadn't even discussed with her when I applied for the London Business School,
Oh my God.
and I was working in an independent role, looking after recruitment, like you brought out in the intro. I had five offices below me, and all five offices were manned by colonels, most of whom were senior to me. It was a challenge getting them to work and getting them to do things with no boss on top of you. So when you are in that kind of a role, invariably you have long office hours, and you go in the morning and you come back late in the evening. And that was the time that I had processed my application for discharge, and I was exploring options of what should I be doing after this. I wanted to study. I was contemplating between an MBA and an executive program. So an MBA would have taken me 2 years, and an executive program was obviously only 1 year. And LBS offered a full-time executive program, which is what lured me. And I hadn't even discussed with her when I came back from office, and I started exploring it online, and I saw LBS, and then to be very honest, before that, I did not know the ranking of LBS or the importance that it carries in terms of education. And so I just rapidly searched which are the top universities in the world, and So there it was: London Business School, Stanford, MIT, and HEC, and INSEAD. And I said, okay, let's see which one offers a full-time executive education program. And that is the time that I came across Sloan. So Sloan is a program which is offered by only three colleges worldwide. It is only Stanford, MIT, and LBS. And somehow I did not, at that point of time, there was all this that was going on in America with Donald Trump and the changes in visa rules and all that was taking place. So I thought maybe UK is going to be a better place to go to. And that's how LBS got finalized. I applied. I forgot to tell my wife. I'm a little forgetful. And one fine day, I got a mail saying that let's talk about your admission and let's have an interview. And that is the time that I actually told my wife, oh, I've got an interview coming up, so I don't want you people disturbing me. And she's like, okay, well, what are you interviewing for? I said, oh, this is for admission at the London Business School. And she said, when did you apply for the London Business School? So I said, oh, I forgot to tell you, I think about a week, 10 days ago. And that is how she came to know about it. And that is how, um, you know, to adding, joining it to the previous reply that I gave you, that is how adjusting and that is how lucky I am in terms of having a wife who is that understanding. And she was fine with it. And she said, okay, if that is what you think lies is good for your future, let's do it. Let's go to London and let's see where life takes us.
So does she work in London or she's an homemaker?
No, now she started looking out for jobs. She's probably going to pick up a job, hopefully.
And
She wants
previously,
to work now that. Sorry.
previously in India, she was working or she was homemaker.
Yeah, so she worked with Rediffusion and she worked with CNN, that is Times International, and she worked for CareerBuilder.com. And those were the times that I would be in a field area and I would be away from the family. And whenever I would get a chance to come back to a piece posting, she would throw it all away. Much against my telling her, she would just chuck her job and she would come back and say that it's more important that we stay together. And then she would wholeheartedly participate in an NGO with the army runs. It's called Army Wives Welfare Association, and it looks after the families of Jawans and their kids and counseling and holding camps for various issues and that kind of a thing. So yeah, she would be full time into that.
Wow.
That's what her background is.
She's been absolutely not just supporting to you, but supporting to entire nation. We can call her Mother India.
wait, wait till she hears you. She's going to murder you online.
Oh my God. Okay. What are the achievements achievements? I've spoken about your achievements. They all are achievements for us. What is your personal achievement? How do you think this is self-realization? You think this is what I wanted? A moment, if you could describe about that.
Personal achievement is to have my family with me, supporting me in all the arbitrarities that I make them go through, with a smile. So if I'm in London, they are with me smilingly and happily and taking part in it with full enthusiasm. I think that is the biggest personal achievement for me. Uh, Personal achievement is the ability to still learn and still excel at it. Is to still be in probably the top lot in my class. That's a personal achievement. I think these two, the personal achievement, third is to still remain young at heart.
You
So,
are, you are, you are.
yeah,
With a
I
40-minute
I mean,
conversation, I've got that you are a
so
big-hearted person.
the day you start thinking that you've become too old and you 40 and there's a book that one of our professors has written. It's called The 100-Year Life. And the one thing that it teaches you is that I still have 60 years ahead of me. So I've not even reached the midway. And if I start thinking from now onwards that I've grown old or there are 10 gray hair that have come in my beard, then I've become old. Then it's a downhill from there. So you can't let that happen to you. You've got to remain young. You've got to keep telling yourself that there is nothing I cannot do. And if I can still do that, I think that's a personal achievement for me.
That's great. I hope you do that, inshallah. And one last thing, sir, I would just, and then I'll give it to the audience. Was it difficult for you, like, to having 20 years in army, being there, being a part of it? Emotionally, it would have been very difficult for you to quit. You must have thought 120 times that I should quit, I shouldn't be quitting, or how my life will look in the future. So that must have bothered you a lot. But today, how do you feel about it? And what was that phrase? Please talk.
Uh, I mean, definitely, after having given 20 years to an organization, some amount of that organization grows on you, and you tend to uh, get influenced a lot by the experiences and by everything that the organization has shared with you. Plus, at the stage at which I was, I still had an upward graph to go. So to throw it all away and to step out of it at that time is a tough call. And yeah, I did think about it quite a few times, and a lot of friends of mine told me that you stupid to be doing what you are doing right now, and you should continue in this organization, and you got a long way to go. Uh, but then at the same time, one of the things that the army taught me was not to get personal about things. Uh, and to give you an example, I'll tell you about the Kargil conflict. You've got a person who has an enemy who fought well. So the Indian Army actually wrote a citation and recommendation for him and sent it along with his body, that this guy actually fought well. So you are taught that nothing is personal. You do not get emotionally attached to something beyond that particular set piece of time. And I think that is one valuable lesson that I carried with me. I said I do not want to get emotionally attached beyond this particular period of time, and I need to step away. It's a conscious decision. It's a decision where the brain is ruling over the heart, and I need to do something else for a better future for my family, for my kids, for myself, my own personal development. And I have no regrets about it. I think it's a wonderful decision that I've taken. I gave my best to the army, and I'm going to give my best to the corporate world now.
Amazing. What are your plans, sir? Can I just ask? Like, I think you must be planning something in the field of strategy, since our tagline says once a war strategist, now a business strategist.
Yes, I'm very inclined towards consulting, towards taking on positions in operational strategy and towards those kind of roles. I am still confused about operations and HR because those are things that I've done for the last 20 years, excelled at them. So a part of the brain still says that maybe this is what you need to do. But I've still got 6 months of the course to go. So I'm yet exploring everything and deciding for myself where do I need to go after this. Let's see.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. I'll just like give the audience the opportunity to have a conversation. I'll read out questions that people have. Guys, ping your questions in quickly. Till then, sir, I would want to ask you a personal question. What would you advise a 20 years, like if you were down 20 years, like if you knew about yourself, and now at this stage, what would you advise your 20-year younger self?
Uh, if I were to advise myself, it would probably be to be a little more experimentative, to probably try out even more things than what I did. It would be to stay away from things um, which are addictive. For example, alcohol. And I see that in a lot of youth these days, that they do not shy away from from substance abuse, and from things that they do not realize the amount of impact are going to have, that these things are going to have on them. So that is what I would advise myself if I were a younger me. And I would, although I did try and make a difference in terms of making an impact on the environment, but I would probably do a lot more if I could. Uh, I mean, just by planting 100 trees in Ladakh, or maybe planting a garden in Bathinda is not enough. I think there is so much more that we need to do, that all of us are capable of doing. Uh, yeah, this is what I would tell a younger me.
Okay, that has a lot of learning for me, honestly. And what is the common? I'll read Shashwat's question. Shashwat from India is asking, what is common between the selection procedure of NDA and LBS? One thing that both these institutions look for.
Okay, the one thing that is common between both of them is that they both do a thorough check on you. So even the NDA is very thorough in their selection, and they'll do a background check, and they'll find out what have you been up to, and they have their own selection procedure which actually spans over 5 days, where you are made to undergo all kinds of tests. And even LBS does that to you in their own subtle manner. They'll find out things about you, and they'll probe you with questions, and they will interview you, and they will talk to people who have known you. So I think that is the commonality between the two of them.
Okay. I hope you received your answer, Shashwat. Then we have Vikram. Sir, you had mentioned that you were put in command of people who were twice your age and you had to be humble. I want to know more about that. How would you deal with commanding someone who was older and a lot more experienced than you? Would it ever get intimidating? Would you ever feel inadequate or have a sense of inefficiency in terms of the knowledge you must have to command an older group of men?
Sense of inefficiency, yes, 100% of the time. However, when you were there in front of them, this was something that you had to push into the background. And you as a leader could not show them that you probably did not know half as much as they did. So one of the things that you learn, and which you need to know as a leader, is to give the freedom to the men that you are commanding to do what you want them to do. So you're just a guiding force for them, and it's finally your men who are achieving wonders for you, which is one of the biggest challenges that I've faced after coming out of the army, is to start doing we instead of we, start doing I. I did this, I didn't do anything. It was my team, my unit, my men, my boys who did everything at all points of time. And now I'm being told and coached and to start doing, I did this and I did that. Um, so yeah, inadequacies all the time, and a brave front all the time, because that is what they are looking at you for. They are not looking at you for knowledge. They got fantastic knowledge. They are looking at you for a brave front, that this is a guy who's not worried, who's going to lead us, and who's going to be there in front of us, uh, without caring for his own personal safety or about his own family. So if he can do that, we can also do that. How to do it? They know well enough how to do it.
Okay, I think he must have received. That's like wonderfully answered, sir. I am impressed. Mimi from Mijael from Argentina is asking, what are some lifestyle changes you experience since moving to London?
I've started getting a lot more time to go out for walks with my wife. So that is one lifestyle change that I've experienced. I've started drinking a lot more coffee, and especially over the last 1 month, I think I've become a serial coffee drinker. as they call it at LBS, when you start interacting with people and you start going out for coffees with them. And the sun doesn't go down pretty early here. So that's another lifestyle change that I've seen, is that it's more of late nights now, and less of early mornings. Uh, yeah, those are the kind of things.
Fine. So coffee is keeping you high, it means, at the moment.
Totally.
Okay. So this last question, I'll take this last question. Shashwat is asking again, if it is appropriate, could you share one CICT operation story in which you were involved? Sir, please explain CICT. I do not know.
Okay, so CICT is counterinsurgency and counterterrorism, and I can share one story with you, because it has a happy ending, and hopefully there will be things that you can take back with you from it. There was this operation that we were doing, which involved the top terrorists of that area, and this is in Assam. And we had been after his group for a fairly long time, and somehow every time that group would manage to give us a slip and get away. Till one day we finally were able to home on to his whereabouts with a large degree of accuracy. We surrounded the house. So we barge into this house, and where he's supposed to be hiding or staying. And there we see that there's a lady standing with a child in her arms, and this guy is standing behind her. And he's got a gun in his hand, and he's got a grenade in the other hand. And he's like, if you shoot me, we all die. And uh, we could have still gotten him without getting into the moralities of the situation. Uh, However, it was a tough call, since he was so high up in the hierarchy of that terrorist organization. But he lived, and hopefully he's still there with his wife and child. That's what happened.
So that's like you must have felt sad about it, but in the end, you had to follow the morality.
Uh, if I'm honest, at that point of time, maybe some of us did feel sad because, uh, had we killed him, probably a lot of us would have gotten medals and gotten a lot of awards. Uh, but now, when I think about it, I think about it with a lot of satisfaction, and I think of how much good, hopefully, it has not just done for that child, but for a lot of children who were from that village, or who were connected to that person in some way or the other. And so now, it's with a lot of satisfaction that I'm narrating this story to
Okay, it's more about dharma than karma.
you. Probably, yes.
Okay. Do you want
Yeah,
me to take
intellect.
last two questions, sir, or is it okay? You would like to wind up?
Uh, we can do quick last two questions.
Okay. Pedro from Lima, Peru is asking, LBS has a strong focus on having a profound impact on the way the world does business and the way business impacts the world. When applying and planning long-term goals, what was one of the long-term impacts you would ideally like to have in the future?
Uh, Blindly, the answer would be related to sustainability. I mean, this is one thing that we need to really get serious about at all levels. At all levels, it is something that uh, normal people like you and me cannot just say that the corporations have to do, and the corporations cannot turn a blind eye to it. I think all of us have a role to play here at each level. And I think this is the one most important thing that the world needs to look into at this stage.
All right, I'll read the next question. Madhya from Turkey is asking, I wonder if you are an avid reader. It would be great if you could suggest some books that you considered influential or worth a read.
I just named a book some time ago, and it's called The 100-Year Life. I would strongly recommend all of you to go through it. It gives a different perspective to life. So that is one book that I would recommend.
Thank you. Well summed this up, and thank you very much, sir. It was a great evening for us over here in India, and I'm sure pretty much evening, morning, night, and some have also got up early morning, 6 o'clock, for this session. I'm very grateful to them and grateful for you, grateful to you for coming and joining us. And secondly, you are a very, in fact, a very strong person, to be honest, and you have not just won battles, but today you are winning hearts. From the post that I read, help me grow more and think critically. So thank you very much for that too. And I always believed in this until the last story I heard, that it should be a match between dharma and karma, but today I think it's more about dharma than anything. So thank you very much for that. That story may be a turning point and a highlight in my life, and I'll always believe in that. And that's a value education for me. Thank you very much for that. And from everybody's end, I would like to cast a vote of thanks. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Great talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.